Sherlock Holmes had always been known for his exceptional intellect and his ability to solve even the most complex of cases. So when his girlfriend, Irene Adler, was brutally murdered, he was determined to find the killer and bring them to justice. As he began to investigate, he was aided by his trusted friend and confidant, John Hamish Watson. Together, they scoured the city, gathering clues and following leads. However, as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, it seemed as though they were no closer to finding the killer. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to uncover any solid evidence or discern any viable suspects. The investigation was further complicated by the fact that Irene had many enemies, including many of the criminals that Sherlock had put behind bars. With so many potential suspects, it was difficult to determine who might have had a motive to kill her. As time passed, the case went cold and it seemed as though the killer would never be brought to justice. But Sherlock refused to give up, vowing to continue searching for the truth no matter how long it took. Years later, John was sitting in his study when he overheard something that Sherlock said. It was a seemingly innocent comment, but it set off a chain of thoughts in John's mind. Suddenly, he was recalling various conversations and interactions he had had with Sherlock over the years, connecting the dots in a way that he had never done before. As he pieced together the clues, it became increasingly clear to John that the killer was none other than Sherlock himself. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was mounting, and John knew that he could no longer ignore the truth. Sherlock killed her. He did it as he couldn't bear the fact that she is taking him away from the most important thing in his life, mystery and being a detective. Sherlock was always wondering if he can make the perfect crime, the one in which the killer will never be caught. He struggled with what to do, torn between his loyalty to his friend and his duty to do the right thing. On the one hand, Sherlock had always been there for him, and he couldn't imagine life without him. On the other hand, he couldn't stand by and allow a murderer to go free. In the end, John made the difficult decision to turn his back on Sherlock and report the crime to the authorities. It was a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Heartbroken and overwhelmed, John left the country, unable to face the reality of what he had done. The once unbreakable bond between him and Sherlock was shattered, and their friendship was left in ruins. As he boarded the plane and looked back at the city that had been his home for so long, John couldn't help but wonder what might have been if he had never uncovered the truth. But he knew that he couldn't ignore the evidence, no matter how much it hurt. And so, he left, knowing that he had done the right thing, even if it meant losing everything. In the years that followed, John tried to move on with his life, but he could never shake the guilt of what he had done. He often wondered how Sherlock was faring, and if he had ever forgiven him for betraying their friendship. But as the years went by, John knew that he had made the right choice. He had stood up for what was right, even if it meant losing the person who had been his closest ally. And although he would always regret the way things had ended between him and Sherlock, he knew that he could live with himself, knowing that he had done the right thing.